Welcome everyone. Today we are going to compare and contrast two Android tablet devices. We have the Eyemoo NXT Epaper S1 and the Boox Tab Ultra C. While both of these are Android tablets, they don't use your typical LCD or OLED screens. The aim for both of these tablets is to help reduce eye strain and provide a screen that is friendlier for your eyes, something extremely helpful if you're staring at a screen for 8 or more hours a day. The Eyemoo uses RLCD or reflective LCD, a relatively new technology, and the Boox uses EINK, a much more mature technology, the same you'd find in your Kindle and Kobo e-readers. Let me cut straight to the chase with my general thoughts. These two tablets could not be more different, and they are meant for different purposes. If you're looking at the Boox, you should know what you're getting yourself into. It has a Kaleido 3 color e-ink screen, which means that when you're reading books, it looks phenomenal. When you're reading PDFs, it looks great. And with the bonus of tinge of inaccurate, low saturated colors, you're going to be able to read manga and comics in a different light. They look great. But as soon as you start needing refresh rates, you're going to see that the screen is very sluggish. When you pinch to zoom, when you navigate menus, that experience starts becoming quite poor. This is where the Eyemoo steps in. It's a different screen technology that has full 60 Hz refresh. Let's put this aside. It is a vastly inferior reading experience. The blacks are more like gray, the background is a little bit shimmery. However, the screen is friendlier on the eyes. As I start using it, as I started watching videos and using my apps, it feels like a normal Android tablet without the lights shining directly into your eyes. What the Eyemoo does is it allows you to stay with all of your ecosystem. You can text, you can watch videos, you can even read the occasional book or two, and it all works. The Boox, on the other hand, you're not going to look at installing a lot of apps on there, even if it's possible. So depending on whether you want this reading experience or a tablet experience, these are two very different approaches. With that out of the way, let's dive deeper into the comparison. The screens are the most important part here. The Boox has this Kaleido 3 color e-ink screen. If you're coming from a Kindle, you should know that a lot of the features of e-ink is still there. It has amazing viewing angles. You could look at it from the side flat and it still looks great. You can look at it dead on and it looks very sharp. But compared to your Kindle, the back is not as white as most black and white devices. That's simply the trade-off for color. Speaking of color, it does look like a faded newspaper. You get enough of a sense of what color should be there, but it's not saturated or accurate enough to really give you a sense of the image. Other than that, the e-ink is extremely sharp, the contrast is good, it works well with the front light, so you have a great experience when reading text. On the color side, they are joining multiple pixels, 4 pixels, to form a single color pixel, which means that the color looks a little bit blurrier than the black and white. Overall, it looks great, but the refresh rate is a real problem. Boox may advertise a super fast refresh rate of roughly 20 frames a second, but it still creates a lot of lag when you're pinching and zooming, navigating. And even worse, if you are using that super fast refresh rate, you get a lot of ghosting. So in reality, it's a very cool technology. It's not all that practical, and no one is going to be watching videos on the Boox. The Eyemoo, on the other hand, has a fairly poor looking screen, but the colors definitely shine through better. The blacks are a lot more gray, and the background is more like a silvery gray than white. And so you don't have that sharp contrast for text. It's bad in comparison to the Boox, but it does color much, much better. The other thing is that the Eyemoo is a first generation device. There are all sorts of telltale signs that they haven't polished this device enough. Included in there are specks of dust or white dust between the screens. It's not bad at all, but it is present. It also has a slight blur on the screen. Oh, and also the Eyemoo is terrible out of the box. The screen is so reflexive it feels like a mirror, and so this device is impossible to use without a matte screen protector. If you get an Eyemoo, budget an extra $10 or $20 and get yourself a matte screen protector. It is the only reason I am doing this comparison right now. The other problem with the Eyemoo is the viewing angles. They aren't bad by tablet standards, but they're certainly poorer than the amazing EINK screen. Overall, this means that EINK is really good at text, really good at looking at those manga, but the Eyemoo is vastly superior when I'm browsing the web or watching videos. Next up, we should talk also about the front light. The Boox has perfected it. It is a perfectly even lighting that shines onto the screen and bounces back to you. You get an option of a cool color or a warm color or a mix, and it looks really, really good. The Eyemoo, on the other hand, has only a cold front light, and it doesn't shine perfectly even. This again affects the reading experience because in portrait mode, you will have one side that is slightly brighter and one side that is slightly dimmer, making for a very disappointing reading experience. However, the Eyemoo does have a sweet spot. If you are looking at the device from landscape at a very slight 5 or 10 degree tilt, the Eyemoo just comes alive. The colors look really good. The text is nice and sharp. The light reflects perfectly. It almost seems like it was designed to stand on a desk as a monitor or a tablet rather than in your hands as a reading device. Not a shocker there. We should talk about Android as well. The Boox comes with Android 11. You may get versions with Android 12. The Eyemoo comes with Android 12. I don't think they're going further than that, either of these devices. But the Eyemoo runs stock Android, or very close to stock Android. So you can run virtually any app and they will function and feel like any other Android tablet or phone that you've ever had. The Boox, on the other hand, has a very customized version of Android, specifically for EINK screens, getting rid of lots of the animations, making text bigger, etc. While Boox has had a lot of time to polish this, and you do get Google Play, which means you get a lot of the apps that you might want to use, they all behave just a little bit differently and add to the learning curve. Both of these devices come with styluses as well. The Eyemoo is a side thought, doesn't snap on the device, it's not even designed by Eyemoo, and the software adds phantom taps all over the place. As far as I'm concerned, it is usable but unacceptable. It is so poorly done that you're only using it to very quickly mark up something that you need. You will never draw with this, and as you mark up your PDFs, you're going to see lots of little dots showing those phantom touches. On the other hand, the Boox stylus is well designed. It snaps onto the side, it writes very nicely on all the Boox apps, very responsive, but if you start using third-party apps, it starts getting a lot of that sluggish delay. As you start using the Boox, you're going to realize it's great for books, but as soon as I start moving from books, whether it's PDFs or comics or manga, pinching and zooming is already enough of a frustration that I keep reaching over to the Eyemoo. When it comes to web browsing, sure, it looks better on the Boox, but as soon as I scroll up and down, I much prefer the Eyemoo. And as a result, you're going to see me reach for the Eyemoo over and over, whether it is to browse the web, use my apps, play Genshin Impact. I can even use it as a second monitor and have done so multiple times with a really pleasant experience. I'm also reaching for the Eyemoo for a lot of videos. It just works better and fits into your workflow easily. I just want to conclude very quickly to talk about different daylight conditions. Long story short, the Boox looks good whether it's night, whether you're under the blaring sun. No matter where you go, the Boox looks really, really good. The Eyemoo, on the other hand, looks different under different lighting conditions. In the sun, it fares well, but the colors are not as saturated. It feels a little bit like looking at an old Game Boy device in which you're able to see everything. It looks better and looks less glary than most of your tablets, and it makes it possible to read books in the sun, but it doesn't look that amazing. At night, with just a little bit of backlight, it looks really, really good. And so throughout the day, you are seeing the Eyemoo in slightly different ways, and the color comes out differently. It's a very interesting experience, and it's not consistent, which is frustrating. But nevertheless, it means that the Boox is also usable throughout the day across many different lighting conditions. At this point, I think it's pretty easy to make a decision. It really depends on your use case. I hope you found this video interesting and useful, and I hope to see you again soon. Thanks for watching.